Aviation and Aerospace Development, Mr. Festus Keyamo, has announced that Nigeria is now ranked top in terms of ease of doing business in Africa. Mr. Keyamo disclosed this in his remarks at the Ministerial Press Briefing on Thursday in Abuja, while reeling out the recent achievements of President Bola Tinubu in the aviation sector. Mr. Keyamo noted that Nigeria's aviation compliance score rose from 49 to 70.5. The highest score is as achieved till date, following the country's full compliance with the Cape Town Convention on the dry leasing of aircraft. He noted that Nigeria's aviation sector under President Tinubu has seen significant achievements such as the facilitation and the return of Emirates Airlines, takeoff of African Aviation and Aerospace University. Also, he identified the revitalization of arch terminals, upgrade of Muhammadu Buhari Airport in Maiduguri Airport, the commissioning of e-gates in Lagos, establishment of task force on illegal private jets in Nigerian airports, and implementation of directive on the international airlines to use local caterers. Mr. Tony Ukachukwu is the Chief Executive Officer and Publisher of Aviators Africa. He joins me to look at some of these notable developments across the industry. Thank you so much. It's good to have you on the program, Mr. Ukachukwu.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine to be here.
Yeah, well, you've listened to my introduction already. The minister says that Mr. Festus Keyamo, he says that Nigeria now ranks top in terms of ease of doing business in Africa. What is your understanding of this? Can you make us understand this submission better?
Thank you very much. So basically, when the minister says the ease of doing business is trying to bring down the barriers that hinder the ability for us to operate, and do business in that sector. So case in point, what he has mentioned, with the Cape Town Convention, which before now used to be an issue because some operators in Nigeria has violated the Cape Town Convention, which made it possible for people to kind of retrieve, or the lessors to retract their aircraft once, and a contract is reached or breached. But what you find out before now was that some operators, we go to our courts, local courts here, and make it impossible for lessors to return, repossess their aircrafts. So that was a major challenge. That made Nigeria become a high-risk country to do business with, especially from dry leasing. So before now, that's what we faced. It was difficult for operators to get dry lease aircraft, from lessors. And when you eventually do, it's on a premium, and that's kind of impacted on your operations as an airline. And of course, the margin is just 5% profit margin in the airline business. So having such kind of high premium becomes very difficult for airlines to operate. So the ease of business, where it's coming from, this is very pivotal. It was very key. It was very impactful. And I dare say that because the current minister has a legal background, he has bring that to fore, and that is playing a very key role in trying to unbundle some of the challenges or some legal frameworks we might have, if you will. And this Cape Town Convention was one of them, which he tackled headlong and immediately jumped us with almost 20% from 49.5 to 70.5, and it didn't stop there. Also, with the administration of rules governing the aircraft repossession by creditors and lessors, known as Irrevocable Deregistration and Expert Request Authorization, IDERA, within 24 hours, it further made us jump on the CTC index from 70.5 to 75.5. So this is a big kudos to the Honorable Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo. So when he says ease of doing business, yes, indeed, the ease of doing business as regards dry leasing and for operators to get aircraft on dry lease has been made a whole lot easier in this administration.
I highlighted so many positives there. Now, look at all he says, even about the e-entry and all of that. There's been a lot of development across the aviation sector since President Tinubu got into office. How impactful, you've already started with that, is Mr. Keyamo's leadership across the entire industry. Can we stay a bit on that?
So basically, like I said, the minister has shown strong leadership. He's very bold on his statements and follows through with the actions. Even though when it started, we had some little squabbles with the stakeholders, but that was, of course, when he was setting up, because there's a whole lot of perception where in our sector, we rather prefer an aviator that understands the sector to lead us as a minister, because you need to understand the nuances and what it means to operate in such an environment. So when the minister is appointed that doesn't have the wherewithal of the sector, he struggles, or he or she struggles in that role. But Keyamo has brought his legal, where he was lacking as an aviator, he has brought his legal expertise into the sector, because, of course, there's aviation law and so many legal frameworks are involved in operating the aviation sector, which he has brought to bear. So his experience, his skill as a son, as a lawyer, has really impacted his leadership role as a minister in the sector. And that has really shown in how he has brought leadership across, discussing all the major challenges we're having and following through.
You mentioned the plan to introduce talking about initiating this Fly Nigeria Act. And immediately I heard that, I'm looking at local content, promoting our own, that's the way to go. Of course, make Nigeria great again, just like you want to make America great again. But do you think that this will really help drive the expected growth and build that kind of confidence that we expect in the industry?
It's a great initiative, but also I worry about implementation. It's a great idea if well implemented. But where this really works very well is where you have, a national carrier, okay, and you make this fly acts to make sure that your citizens or your natives of that country fly this aircraft, fly this airline. But when it comes domestically, of course, all the domestic airlines are Nigerian airlines. But again, let's look at Airpeace, which is the only airline flying, which is a flag carrier flying international. Okay, as an individual, you cannot compel me to fly Airpeace. But as a government official, the law can override to say, as a government official, you are mandated to fly Airpeace. So that's where the Fly Act can come into play. So it works basically if we have a national carrier, that's where it's going to really be impactful. But on a lower level where we have a flag carrier, government people can be mandated to make sure that, except we don't have a carrier flying to a particular destination, international destination, then that's only when you can fly another carrier. But when you have a Nigerian carrier flying international to any destination, you are mandated first to fly that carrier. That's when it begins to make impact. But on the large scale, it's a good idea, but it will too fly more if we have a national carrier. But in this case, we have a flag carrier in Airpeace. So government can, that law will favor Airpeace, because Airpeace right now is the only carrier from Nigeria, it's a flag carrier flying international. So the law will favor Airpeace. And of course, when it favors Airpeace, of course, it favors our economy.
But of course, Mr. Okachukwu, you will agree with me that we still have challenges across the sector. That issues of flight cancellations, issues, we can go on and on and on and on. There's been issues of even the fares at a particular time, the back and forth with fares issues where the FCCPC had to come in to intervene at a particular time. Now, my question really would be, do you think the authorities, the agencies in charge, are they doing enough to address these challenges that passengers face? Or what more can be done if they are doing their bit?
So you're very spot on. Cancellation and delays have been a menace in the industry. It has been one of the shackles holding down the industry. And if you will, they say a passenger, a customer is supposed to be king, but in the airline industry, is the airline, the operators that are king, because you see in the situation where an airline will delay 3 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours. Of course, with no recourse to passengers, they don't get their due. But I tell you what, when the minister came in, he was particular on consumer protection, and he made sure that he drove it down by. Can you mute this mic, please?
Hello, sorry about that.
Yeah, so as I was saying, so when the minister came in, he was very vocal on dealing with issues of cancellation and delays, and not just a talk shop, just like Keyamo is not someone of just talk. He walked the walk. He made sure that the regulator, which is NCAA, will tackle this cancellation and delays as a regulator from a regulatory point of view. And when it got to the table of the NCAA, they didn't just sit down on it. They made sure they went into action by making sure that the Directorate of Consumer Protection and Public Relations, which is in the person of the Directorate, of course, which the director is Chimugu, made sure that they now began to tackle cancellation and delays very seriously. So a portal has been launched. I can tell you, I'm privy to what has been going on as I'm part of the team working on something that will bring reprieve to air travelers, and NCAA is on top of it. And I must give kudos what they've done so far in last 1 year, making sure that Nigerians get their compensation and benefit as at when due as regards cancellation and delays. So it has greatly improved. NCAA has been very on top of it. They've been doing a great work, of course, under the leadership of Captain Chris Najomo, and the directorate, of course, Achimo, who is sharing that directorate of consumer protection. Now passengers are beginning to get some kind of trust in the system, because it's greatly improved. But I don't want to say much. I mean, NCAA, who is the regulator, will come in due time to announce some of the groundbreaking initiatives it's taking concerning delays and cancellation. But I can tell you from a point of view as somebody that is an insider, a great work is being done, and air travelers are going to appreciate that in no distant time to come.
What now will be the outlook for the entire industry, globally, domestically, considering geopolitical issues? Trump tariff issues are already impacting the industry. I saw a report earlier in the week where some airline companies abroad, are already complaining about a reduction in flights and all of that. So what's your outlook for 2025 moving on?
So basically, yes, aviation is a global industry.
It is.
It's a global industry, but what I'm more concerned in is how we can locally, as a country, fix the issues that are bedeviling our sector. And I must say that one of the mistakes that previous ministers have done, ministers of aviation, is that they come and they try to, get to cheat a whole lot of things. I must say that the sector, anybody that comes into the sector to fix the sector must be strategic, because there's a whole lot of issues from the regulatory part, from the operative part, from taxes, from infrastructure. There's a whole lot of bottlenecks, and it will take time. So I think the infrastructure deficit that we have should be fixed. And then, of course, reprieve will come back when the NCAA begins to deal with issues of cancellation and delays, the trust is back, and then fares are beginning to lower because of trust by the general framework of the system. When it begins to work, as is looking up now, then it's going to be better for it. Yes, the tariffs and what Trump is doing is going to affect us globally, but I'm more concerned about how we deal with it locally, from a local standpoint as a country.
Indeed, you're looking deep down at how it affects us in this country. But before we go on a lighter note, do you think our own airlines are ready to play big in this market? Do they have that capacity to play big in this market?
So it's a tricky question. Airlines have the capacity to play big, but just like I'm very big on governance, corporate governance. I see no corporate governance culture in our operators in Nigeria as we speak. And that for me is a challenge. Until our operators begin to enshrine corporate governance in their operations and in their frameworks, then I will not have so much trust on them. I mean, it's all about one chairman running the show, one person that everybody's looking to. That's not how to run an airline that wants to be global. You must have systems and checks in places. You must have checks and balances. And also from the government side, we need to appoint boards for the ministries and parastatals. That's how the corporate governance structure is going to give us that readiness, that impetus for the global community to say, these guys are ready. So from the operator side, when it comes to maybe perhaps finances and the ability to pool funds, yes, but the governance structure is very, very poor. And I think operators should work on that.
Mr. Tony Ukachukwu, CEO, publisher, Aviators Africa, thank you so much spending your Friday afternoon with us on Business Nigeria. We appreciate this. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, then.